Hey, my name is Jerry Swafford Jr. I have a PhD in mechanical engineering, and I'm going to quickly answer the question of what does it mean to complete a PhD? There are a lot of things out there. People have all the jokes. Older people like to use the joke about I have a PhD too, I'm a post-hole digger or something like that. People have all kinds of jokes and they always talk about, oh, you don't need a PhD for this or that. And so it can get confusing when it comes to what does it really mean to have a PhD? What does it mean that I have to be or become? So I'm going to answer that question. It's actually very simple, but we aren't often told what it is that we're working toward. So here's what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean you're some brilliant genius. I get told I'm a genius all the time. I get told that I'm smart all the time because I have a PhD. That's not really what makes you smart. I was good at school, but being good at school isn't necessarily what gets you through a PhD because the dissertation writing and research process is different than anything else you've done in school. So even being at school doesn't really help you out with that. So it's not that you're a brilliant genius or that you're just really great at school per se, because that's not what gets you through it. It's not necessarily that you are a top level expert in your field. It could mean that you should know a whole lot of information and you should know a whole lot about your field. But are you a top level expert? I mean, top of the top? Well, no, you don't necessarily need that to have a PhD. And sometimes we go into it thinking, okay, I'm going to know more about this topic than anybody in the world. You'll know more about your topic. You ought to know more about your topic than most people, probably the people on your committee even, and you need to be able to explain it to them. Are you necessarily the number one person in the entire world in your field? It doesn't have to be that. You might be that. It might be something very obscure. I was in robotics and AI, or I am in robotics and AI. I'm not the top level person in my field. There's just so many different areas that you can go into. Here's what a PhD doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that you can answer questions from areas outside of your field of study. And I see this all the time. I see people that are saying things that really aren't in their field of study, but because they have those letters, people listen to them. Now, in some ways that irritates me, but now that I have my PhD, that also means that there are going to be people that listen to what I have to say about things that are unrelated to mechanical engineering or robotics or artificial intelligence. And they will listen to me because, well, he's smart, he has a PhD. Well, again, I think you probably need to have some smarts, but you don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be a top level expert in your field. And it doesn't necessarily mean at all that you can answer questions accurately from areas that are outside of your particular field of study. Here's what it also doesn't mean, and I think this was the biggest one of all for me. It doesn't mean that you're conducting some type of world-changing, transformative, tip of the top research in the world. That's something that I thought I was needing to do. I was needing to do something that's going to change the world. And unlike my master's degree, where I did some work that a couple of years later I just didn't feel that great about, the PhD is going to be different. I thought to myself, I'm going to do something that is greater, that 20, 30, 40 years from now, I'll look back on that PhD work and I'll be so pleased with it. No, actually, that's not what you're doing. You might be doing transformative world-class research, and I hope that you are, but that's not what it means to get a PhD. Here's what it means to get a PhD. It simply means this. You have become an entry-level researcher in your field of study. Notice the emphasis is on entry-level researcher, period. That's it. You just need to become an entry-level researcher in your field, meaning that you can now conduct and lead directions of research in your field. You know how to do that. You know what the literature is out there. You have a pretty good understanding of that. Does it mean you're the top person in your field? No. Does it mean that you are doing transformative, world-changing research? No. But can you move a research team in a direction? Are you entry-level? That's what you have to become to have a PhD. That's what a PhD represents. You probably weren't told this. I know I wasn't. I didn't find this out until well into my PhD journey, and it really wasn't my advisor that told me this. But then when I found it out, I think I probably saw it on a YouTube video or something. That's why I want to get the word out as well. If you're a PhD student and you're thinking, I have to be a brilliant genius. I see all of this great work and I'm not on that level. And maybe one day I'll get to that level and then I'll be able to finish. No, that's not what this is. You need to become an entry-level researcher. Chances are you're already there. This should come as a relief to you. Let me move this. This should come as a relief to you that you don't have to do all of those things that maybe you thought you were going to do, you were going to need to do, that those expectations may have been higher than what they actually have to be. So what this means is that you can finish faster than you thought you could. Finishing won't be as hard as you thought it might be. And you can now just get back to refocusing on the work. See, you came to this video because you're saying, well, what does it mean to be a PhD? Or maybe you haven't even started. Just know what you'll need to do is you'll need to become an entry-level researcher in your field of study. And when you have done that, you have done what you need to do to finish a PhD. That involves obviously finishing a dissertation and defending it. But again, all of that goes into being an entry-level researcher. It doesn't mean that you have to be the best in the world at what you're doing. So if you know that, and you're a PhD student right now or PhD candidate right now, you know you're not a brilliant genius. And you probably already know that. And now you're fearing that you won't be able to finish your PhD because you're not brilliant. It's okay. You don't have to be a brilliant genius to finish your PhD. Maybe you're not a top-level expert in your field. You can't answer questions outside of your field of study. You know your thing, but you don't know a lot of other things. It would be good to learn other things, but you don't need that to finish a PhD. Maybe you aren't conducting transformative world-class research, and you look around at other people that are doing really great work that you barely understand, and you say to yourself, oh, well, if I've got to do that, then I'm just never going to finish. Relax. You don't have to do those things to get a PhD. That's not what it means. Those things aren't required. You have to simply become an entry-level researcher in your field. That's it, period. If you will become an entry-level researcher in your field, you'll be able to finish your PhD. It was interesting, towards the end, I was really, even though I knew this by that point, when I was in the latter stages of getting my dissertation approved, I started thinking, well, maybe there's more I can try to add. But even when I was talking to my committee members, it became clear they're not looking for me to do some world-class research. They're looking for me to demonstrate that I'm an entry-level researcher in this field. And I am. And now I get to work on other things because I got it done and got to work on other parts of my life. So what are you waiting for? Finish your research, write your thesis, defend it, graduate. Then after that, get on with your life. Start the next chapter. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.